Eugene Murphy brings down the house, and then the Memphis Tigers and the Thundering Herd do so for the next 30 minutes. The Tigers would prevail. Next up for the Herd, Southern Miss. We've got Marshall basketball with Tom Harriet, and it starts right now.
This is Marshall Thundering Herd basketball with head coach Tom Harriet and Keith Morehouse.
And we welcome you to the show. Marshall with a tough week, losing at home to Memphis and on the road to East Carolina. Coach, I'd say everybody feeling sorry for you, but they don't in this game. Not at this level. You got Southern Miss coming up.
No doubt. Obviously, Southern Miss this afternoon, a terrific team playing right in contention for the conference championship and coming into our building on senior day, Keith. So we got a lot at stake ourselves. So got to pick ourselves up off the mat. We use that frequently, and this is no different situation after two tough losses the previous week.
You told me earlier you guys get back from the long trip, and you still had a pretty good practice, huh? Is that surprising?
Yeah, no, I mean, these guys have been resilient. I've been pleased. You walk in on Thursday. We got back around 6 a.m. After the long bus ride home from Greenville, North Carolina, and then, classes and stuff during the course of the day, and then regroup and get on the floor that afternoon. And, they ceased to amaze you. They've got they're resilient, and that's obviously I'm pleased with that. So hopefully we'll bounce back and get ourselves ready to play good basketball on Saturday to close out the regular season as we head to Memphis for the conference tournament.
What's your if you had one, message you want to send to the guys as you get ready for the Southern Miss and then the conference tournament?
Well, for Southern Miss, it's simply, since the end of the East Carolina game, we're simply playing for our three seniors. It's we want this to be a memorable day for them. Senior day it should be something that they look back on as seniors in their last game in their home arena in front of their home fans. I want them to have a great memory. Obviously, it's always nice when you have able to provide a win, help get a win for those three seniors, and be more consistent. We got to play over 40 minutes. We haven't done that, unfortunately, throughout the course of this last stretch. We got to put 40 minutes together as we head to conference tournament play.
All right, we'll talk about the Herd and the very talented Memphis Tigers when we come back to Marshall basketball with Tom Harriet. Stick with us.
Marshall Thundering Herd basketball is brought to you by Brick Street Insurance, Pebble Huntington Hospital, the Edwards Comprehensive Cancer Center, Creative Kitchens, your local Ford dealer, IBEW Local 317, AT&T, the Friends of Coal, and the West Virginia Lottery. Welcome back to Marshall Thundering Herd basketball with head coach Tom Harriet and Keith Morehouse.
Back on the show as the Memphis Tigers come to town. Coach, we talked about it in the break. These guys, ultra-talented, top 10 preseason coming in. Maybe hadn't lived up to expectations, but these guys are as talented as any team in America.
Well, they're playing that way right now, Keith. They're playing at a really high level. Unfortunately for us, we contributed mightily to that last Saturday in our game. But they're really talented. They're playing really good. They're probably playing their best basketball of the year right now, coming down the stretch, heading into conference tournament, hosting it in their own city, in their own building. So a very talented group and playing, again, peaking at the right time.
They brought their A game to the Henderson Center. We check out the highlights and Landau Eugene Murphy on the national anthem.
Little talent right there.
Oh man, he's certainly got a lot of fans and a nice crowd there on hand. Coach, they came out. Obviously, their ability to get inside shots and kind of finish around the rim. You knew that coming in, but they were pretty efficient at it.
Yeah, they were, and our defense wasn't very good. I was really disappointed with it. We started out right here, going inside early to Dennis, get a good easy bucket inside, and we battled. Our first 30 minutes we were really good, but the defense I didn't like us at all the entire game.
Yeah, there you see Goff on the dunk. It's 5-4, but we mentioned that they got so many guys that can jump, and then no resistance there, though, as you mentioned.
No, poor defense right there, giving up an easy dunk right there, and then we get a turnover off a kick out. You get them in transition, and that's where they're at their best. They're so good at getting in the open court, and Barton on a follow-up from Jackson's miss.
And of course, this is a great play that you'll see a little bit later on. The block by Spikes and then a pretty alley-oop inside.
Yeah, getting ball points in transition. Nice job right there, running the lane. Dennis filling. DeAndre with a nice little alley-oop pass.
Pretty pass from Demir Pitts now into Dennis Tennant for the dunk. And offensively, you guys are clicking right now.
Yeah, we played really well offensively, especially early in the game. We got a lot of good shots, but our offense, we're just kind of going we're throwing match for point for point, bucket for bucket, instead of getting stops on the other end. Our defense was poor.
Yeah, and you're watching the game from the stands and you're thinking, okay, they got to get a stop, right? And it was harder than it looked, huh?
Yeah, I guess so, but that's a big shot at the end of the half.
Yeah,
put them up 5. I thought it broke our back a little bit, took some of our spirit out.
There's Barton on the run out as he gets the dunk, and in the second half, you'll see a play here coming up soon that we'll explain to you. But they got so many guys that can jump, Coach. You can't put them all on the ground.
Well,
right?
They make athletic plays, and when plays break down, they have enough talent to make something happen. And we didn't do a good enough job defensively. Make no mistake about that.
Pretty block by Dennis Tenen here, showing his hustle. He's played really well the last few games.
Yeah, he's had a great year overall. There's a little contact off a high ball screen and leads to a breakout situation here. They call a hard foul, and a little scramble situation.
I thought you guys did a nice job as you tell them to stay back. At the other end, you didn't see it, but I did. DeAndre King got a little bump. What I thought was interesting, Coach, they looked at this thing for 7-8 minutes and nothing came of it.
Yeah, obviously, in their opinion, I guess they didn't see any other contact other than the hard foul, which I thought was a hard foul, but nowadays I guess they've taken that out of the game and it's become an intentional foul.
Yeah, there's the missed dunk that a couple of times, Coach, you got to have a chance to put this down to 5, get the crowd into it. Those were critical misses there.
Yeah, there's no doubt. We definitely did.
Here is the point I'm talking about. Now, that I'll say it. I don't know if you can. That's a technical in just about any league in the world. Barton basically pointing at Tenen on the ground. Yeah,
well, obviously it's something that they didn't need to see, or just didn't see it that way.
Yeah, and at this point things got a little unraveled for you. And I know, it wasn't a 20-point game. Didn't seem like that. It just got out of hand there at the end.
Yeah, it did. We didn't do a good job. Obviously, the last 10 minutes of the game, we hurt ourselves. But again, our defense let us down the entire night, and they scored way too easy, shot too high a percentage, and you can't play that way against a really good team, which they are.
Yeah, they went on to beat UCF 84-55 after this one. So as you mentioned, they're playing very well. Marshall gets 16 and 10 from Dennis Tenen. DeAndre King with 16 and Will Barton with 26 as the Memphis Tigers roll on. 87-67 is the final in that one. Well, Coach, you knew that coming in, that if you give them just a little bit of an opening, they'll take it. That's what the good teams do.
Yeah, there's no doubt. They're obviously very talented. We respect their talent level, and it's a game we obviously, I don't think the score was indicative of the competitiveness of the game, but unfortunately it is what it is. And we didn't do a good enough job. Again, our defense let us down mightily, and I didn't think we competed at a high level on the defensive end of the floor to give ourselves a better chance to win that game.
All right, we'll come in and drop in on some post-game from the Herd and Memphis Tigers when we come back to Marshall basketball. Tom Harrier.
Welcome back to Marshall Thundering Herd basketball with head coach Tom Harrion and Keith Morehouse.
So the Tigers win it by 20. After the game, in the post game, we hear first from Dennis Tenen, who talks about that unfortunate missed dunk attempt on the fast break.
I wasn't paying attention on how fast I was going. I was just sprinting the floor, on the backside, and then, I ended up cutting in, and I seen DeAndre, throw the pass, and then I looked down to get the pass, and then I just looked up, and then it was like the rim was right there, so I tried to hurry up and, go ahead and dunk it. But just my momentum carried me, and I just tried to throw the ball in and hurt him, grab the rim so I wouldn't hurt myself, and then the ball just bounced out, which was bad on my part, but I mean, one of the mistakes of the game.
I'm really, really, really disappointed on that. So obviously I didn't do a good enough job getting our kids ready to play, and I'll take the blame for that. I give Memphis a lot of credit. They're talented, but we contributed mightily to that performance today. And but I don't know. I've had teams shoot 59, close to 60%. So it begins and ends on that end of the floor. And we had no resistance whatsoever, and it's obviously very, very disappointing.
I haven't seen it like this, I guess it was just, Memphis was, they was getting better of us on the court. We was trying to fight battle, and it just seemed like things just wasn't going our way still. We responded the wrong way toward the end of the game.
That's Shaq Johnson talking a little bit about at the end when you got a couple of technicals.
Yeah.
Those were pretty much born out of frustration.
Yeah, and there's no excuse for that. There's no place for that. We obviously got to be stronger mentally and physically stronger, tougher when things don't go our way. We all have frustrations, but we got to handle it and manage it in a more proper manner, which is addressed with our kids.
Yeah, is that a tough thing to do, Coach? I know it's in the heat of the battle. These guys are playing hard, and they just got to maintain composure.
They've got to keep your composure, which we've done it most of the time. But when things don't go our way. We cannot, we can't cave in. We can't get weak, and we've had that a little bit, and it's unfortunate. And we'll continue to learn from it. We got some guys that need to continue to learn to control their frustration and their emotions.
Yeah, you can channel that in a good way if you work it to the positive. All right, we'll come back as the Herd takes off for Greenville, North Carolina. East Carolina on the docket next. We'll talk about it when we come back to Marshall basketball and Tom Harrigan.
And now, time for the IBEW Local 317 Electrifying Play of the Week.
That's a prime example of defense leading to offense. Coach, when you guys get going like that, you were giving Memphis a taste of their own medicine. That's what your kids like to do.
Yeah, no doubt. Like any team, you want to be able to play in transition, but it starts when you're taking the ball out of the net, when the team shoots such a high percentage, there's not a lot of transition to be had for us. Offensively, we said it earlier in the show, Keith, we were pretty good. We were pretty efficient, especially the first half of the game. But again, our defense let us down.
Yeah. Have you ever been a part of a game where they had that many dunks, the opposite team?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, you know, again, we just it was just porous defense for us. But give them credit, and clearly didn't get the job done.
All right, let's move on and talk about East Carolina. The Herd taking a trip down to Greenville, North Carolina, where Marshall hadn't lost since 2008. Some pretty good success at Minges Coliseum. And Coach, I thought you guys started this game out really well and just weren't able to push it out, but you got off to a great start.
No doubt. We were really locked in. The kids came ready to play, up 10, 17-7 to start the game. We really were good, you know, on the road, tough place to play. Demir pulling up right there, deep shot right there. So, but then obviously the turnovers become a factor for us. There's a little nice extra pass right there. Robert gave us a good shot, a good jolt early in the game. Robert Goff.
Yeah, I thought he did. He had 6 points very early, but a nice look by Shaq Johnson. Great penetration by DeAndre Kane with the left hand.
Yeah, we drove it right there. Nice little split action off a ball screen, and then he lays it in with the left hand, and we can finish.
Here you go with a nice alley-oop from Pitts into Dennis Tennant. So you're up 10, Coach. Things are looking good.
Yeah, we got off to a great start. You know, obviously, we know how good they are, and right there, it's they run a lot of screen and roll with a replacement action. It gives a lot of teams trouble, and Kemp, who didn't play against us, makes that shot, and here comes the turnovers now. It's off a trap on a ball screen, and then you know, points off turnover. It's just indefensible when you turn it over like that for points.
And unusual. They ran that trap against Demir Pitts a lot, as you watch Shaq go up, and he doesn't normally let that trap get to him, and they bothered him.
Yeah, it bothered him a little bit more than usual, like you said, and then you know, straight line drive right there. We got to step in and we got to take a challenge that right there on a weak side rotation was poor.
You answered nicely. That's a beautiful pass from Dennis Tennant here into DeAndre Kane.
Yeah, a little back cut off a play, set play right there. A nice back cut with a great finish. A good execution by our guys.
I love the way he flipped the pass. That was as impressive as the dunk. As you guys continue, and how about Yus Mbao with his first collegiate bucket for the Thundering Herd? A little left-handed up.
Yeah, he keeps getting better and better, Keith. You know, obviously he's really improved immensely. But Morrow inside, you know, we didn't work hard enough right there. Dennis has got to work hard to get around and discourage that pass into Morrow.
Yeah, and he's such a big body. It's almost tough to push him out, right? I mean, he gets it down there in the blocks.
Yeah, he's hard to handle in there because he's big, he's physical, he's got really good feet, he's really agile. Great play at the end of the half right there. Good execution. Doggo with an extra pass inside.
Yeah, so you're up by 2 at halftime, 34-32. We come out in the second half, and you see Shaq Johnson missing here, but DeAndre Kane cleaned it up, and you had a nice start to the second half.
No doubt. You know, we came out really ready to go, and our kids played really hard, Keith. And not necessarily play pretty, or you can't overhelp in that situation. Trying to double down off Morrow. You give Sampson, who's a talented offensive player, can shoot the basketball. You give him an open look.
Pretty pass from Shaq Johnson over to the other side where Pena's wide open. So now you're up by 5, 40-35. They keep coming, though. I thought Sampson he had 3 threes, and they all seemed to be critical times.
Yeah, you can't overhelp again. You know, they hurt you with the stretch 4-man. There's Doggo spotting up top. Good job on the glass right here, fighting for the loose ball. You save it, and you know, good hustle play, good finish right there by Shaq.
Yeah, I thought that was a prime example of what happens when you stick to to it on the glass, and that's exactly what you did. Here's that pressure again, and they got some big guys, and that gave them a little breakout here.
Yeah, they trapped that up top, and we weren't strong enough. We didn't meet the pass, and you can't turn it over. Like we said earlier, 20 turnovers on the road is not going to be good for you in any environment.
Pitt's answers, though, is he comes right back down pretty much single-handedly and slices through the defense to tie it up. Then he comes out, started to feel confident. Last year, Coach, down there, this is about when you guys took control. Kind of similar situation.
No doubt, battling. It's a punch-for-punch game right now. Great pass inside. Good finish by Dennis. Great extra pass. Good execution. We really shared the ball well.
Yeah, it actually went, he threw it between Morrow's legs. Then DeAndre Kane hits the three-pointer here. You retake the lead. And I thought this, Coach, was a real critical time here. You're going to get the three by Demir Pitts. And you go up 5 points, and then you go off the inbounds here. And this is a huge play.
Yeah, poor timing. We sent a guy long, but we didn't want to necessarily throw it long, and poor decision in that regard. Now we get a turnover. We're scrambling right here. Leads to an open three by Paul. Big play in the game, momentum breaker for us. Up 5 with the ball.
Yeah, you could have. Let's say you go up 7, and then instead it's back to a 2-point game. So I thought that was huge. And then this, where what DeAndre Kane was arguing was that he got hooked, and he did, but he argued a little too vehemently. And this is what you talk about, Coach. At this critical point in the game, he gets teed up.
Yep, it's a really poor timing on his part. Obviously, you got to control your emotions in that situation.
And I know you've drilled that into his head. He's such a great player, and part of what makes him great is that he's fiery, but you got to know when to do it.
There's no doubt. It'll continue to be a learning process, and he's got to do a better job in that situation.
All right, so you go into overtime here after DeAndre Kane gets the steal there, gives it back to Shaq Johnson, so it's 63 apiece. And they got one last look at it. I thought Pitts played pretty good defense on Paul. Overtime period, Coach, not much going offensively for either of you guys.
No, neither team. I think we make the one field goal. They don't make any field goals in overtime. We make the one late 3. Right here it's down 2. Got a great look right there. Great look by Dago. Obviously, the ball doesn't go in.
Did you, obviously you ran that play. It was executed well. Did you want to shoot that early in the shot clock? Or did
we wanted to because we wanted to have a chance to offensive rebound. We didn't think the ball was going to go over the backboard on the shot. So it didn't give it, yes, we wanted to get a shot. We're down 2. You can't hold just for the last shot. You got to give yourselves a chance to offensive rebound, which we had been doing really well in this game. So good execution. Obviously didn't knock down the shot.
69-68 in overtime. ECU gets the win. Pitts and Kane with 17. Morrow led the Pirates with 27. All right, we'll come back, talk about what's up next, the Southern Miss Golden Eagles, when we come back to the show.
Marshall Thundering Herd basketball is brought to you by Keble Huntington Hospital, the Edwards Comprehensive Cancer Center, AT&T, your local Ford dealer, Creative Kitchens, the West Virginia Lottery, the Friends of Coal, Brick Street Insurance, and IBEW Local 317.
Welcome back to the show as we get set to wrap things up. Coach, you got a tough stretch coming up with Southern Miss and then probably 4 wins in the conference tournament to get the NCAA. How's your health? You guys doing okay?
Yeah, we're in pretty good health. Nigel was under the weather and down in Greenville, as you may remember, had a little illness, but I think we're recovered from that. And DaVinci Boykins, who's not playing right now, is a little banged up with an ankle injury, but other than that, we're in pretty good shape, all things considered. All
right, and that's what's up ahead. You got Southern Miss coming up today at 2, and that'll be a tough game. Obviously, the Eagles have been they've been a high RPI team all season long. Then the Conference USA tournament starts Wednesday in Memphis. Talk a little bit about Southern Miss, Coach. Larry Eustace's done a great job with them. They've got the transfer from Kentucky, Lachey Page, and they've just Dodson's the transfer, but Page is also a player for them. These guys have been good all year long.
Yeah, they've had an outstanding year. Give Larry obviously a great deal of credit. He's been there a long time now, building it up to this point. Now 8 or 9 years before they finally get into this point in his tenure there. They're really good. We had a great game down there. We fought back, had a chance. But one thing that they've got veteran players. They've got a lot of seniors, and then the 2 transfers, JUCO transfers. Neil Watson, it was going to be probably the newcomer of the year in the league, and Jonathan Mills, who's been phenomenal. Our 2 junior college transfers that they wrap around these older guys. Lachey Page leads them in scoring, great shooter. Bolden been around, and Johnson, the transfer from Southern Cal. So they've got really good balance. They got really good depth. They guard well, and they really take care of the basketball on offense, Keith, and shoot free throws extremely well.
Yeah, you got down in Hattiesburg, toured comeback, and and then I remember Watson hit a big three there late in the game, right?
Yeah, we had a little breakdown. We like I said, we hit a three to cut it to 1. There was going to be a shot clock difference. We were going to get the ball back with a stop, and we gave up an open three. We had a poor breakdown in that situation. And Watson, who's had a phenomenal year, has had a big impact for that program. Hit a big three to go put them back up 4. Kind of broke our back late, and so we battled back. Obviously, they played at a high level all year. They won a bunch of games in the non-conference that have helped their RPI, and they're playing for themselves. And before they head to the conference tournament, they're playing for an at-large bid into the NCAA tournament.
It should be an emotional game too with the seniors, right?
Yeah, it always is. Senior day is obviously a special day, as I talked about earlier. And for these 3 kids, what they've done for this program, obviously before I got here and since I've been here, I think it speaks not just statistically where some of them are going to fall in terms of points, games played, and it's 3-point shots, etc., but just the totality of what they've meant to this program, and came in and helped to try to start the process of rebuilding the program, and they were a part of it as early as freshmen in their careers.
Yeah, so come out and say goodbye to the seniors, Shaq Johnson, Demir Pitts, and Dago Pena. That does it for the show. We'll be off next week. Come back after the Conference USA tournament, talk Marshall basketball again. Thanks to Tom Harry, and I'm Keith Morehouse. We'll see you next time on Marshall Basketball. Thanks for watching.